Hi guys, Scott DeGiamarino here. I'm the host of the Inspirational Motivational Leadership Podcast. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. As you all know, we have incredible guests, and with us today is Alena Sviderskaia. Who's one of the well, it's funny is I pronounce your last name and my last name is just much of a bear.
Jamarino.
D Jamarino is like D and then jam, like peanut butter and jelly, and then Marino. It took me to I was in ninth grade to learn how to pronounce it right. Never mind spell it. But Alena is one of the top leadership coaches in the world, based out of Canada. She's got a tremendous client base and makes a massive difference in people's lives. And if you want to hear Alena's story, we actually just did a podcast earlier on herself and her background and her life. Please go listen to it. It's on iTunes and Spotify and iHeartRadio and all the inspirational motivational leadership channels. So Alena, welcome back.
Oh, thank you. It is so amazing to be back. We had such a great time the first time. So I was really looking forward to this one.
I'm thinking about having you as my permanent guest.
I'm in. I am so in.
Yeah, we could actually co-host this thing together.
Oh my God, yes. And you all heard it. He can't back out of it.
Oh, you're great. So, and this show is a little bit shorter. So as we all know, this is what we call a movie clip review. And what we do is we always show our guests a movie clip of their choice. And we'll talk about that in a second. And we want to pluck out all of the life lessons, the leadership skills, the soft skills that you see when you watch a movie clip. So Alena, so tell us about the movie clip that you chose for MovieComm.
I actually chose a movie clip from the movie A Beautiful Mind, and it's a movie that really, I haven't watched it in a long time, but I remember the feeling that I had after watching it. It's fantastic. The actors are fantastic. The plot is so interesting. And when I saw this movie clip available for review, I just jumped on it and I did not regret it. I think I watched it at this point, this specific movie clip, maybe 5-7 times. And every time I watch it, it's fantastic.
Oh, starring Russell Crowe, right?
Yeah, of course.
It's a great movie. It doesn't hurt. Right. So what's the movie about?
So the movie is about the professor, and as I said, I haven't watched the full movie in a long time, but it's a transformation. It's a story of, unfortunately, it's not a feel good movie in a way. Like it's a story about mental health issues and the brilliance and how it's borderline, crazy sometimes, and how I think it's also a movie about the intelligence not necessarily being equal emotional intelligence. So intellect not necessarily mean a lot of self-awareness, a lot of emotional intelligence. So that's my
Absolutely. It's actually a true story. Where the Russell Crowe's the person he's portraying actually ended up winning the Nobel Peace Prize back in the day. What was incredible about the movie is he was a professor at Cambridge University, and over time he developed mental illness, schizophrenia actually, and it was one of his students, Jennifer, and Jennifer actually came in and took care of him over time to the point where he reached his greatness and his full peak potential because of her. And the scene we're going to watch is actually the scene where it's his first day as a professor, and he walks into class and the classroom is 105 degrees. There's no air conditioning, there's no ventilation. And Jennifer actually happens to be his student at the time. It's the first time they've ever met. So why don't we watch the clip? Okay, and then we'll break it down after.
The eager young minds of tomorrow.
Leave one open, Professor. It's really hot, sir.
Your comfort comes second to my ability to hear my own voice. Personally, I think this class will be a waste of your, and what is infinitely worse, my time. However, here we are, so you may attend or not. You may complete your assignments at your whim. We have begun. Miss.
Excuse me! Excuse me!
Hey!
Hi. We have a little problem. It's extremely hot in here with the windows closed and extremely noisy with them open. So I was wondering if there's any way you could, I don't know, maybe work someplace else for about 45 minutes?
Not a problem.
Thank you so much.
Got a break? Got it. Just clean it up a little bit.
As you will find in multivariable calculus, there is often a number of solutions for any given problem. As I was saying, this problem here will take some of you many months to solve. For others among you, it'll take you the term of your natural lives.
So, Alena, as you're watching that, tell me what you picked up. There were so many different little lessons in there, et cetera, right? Tell me what you saw.
Absolutely. So from the very moment, right? So that first moment when he enters the room and he says with a bit of a sarcasm, the eager young minds of tomorrow, right? So right away there's that tone that kind of sends messages, because and in leadership it is so important. Their messages being sent all the time through what leaders say, through the way they behave, through the decisions they make. They're consistently sending messages. And it's the subtle thing. If you just look at the words, the eager young minds of tomorrow, if you take away that emotion out of it, it seems fine, right? So that's a greeting. But when you hear a little bit of a sarcasm, oh, okay, so we're picking up a little bit. And then he continues, right? So he just walks past the student and shuts down the window. And the student goes, well, sir, it's really hot. Can we leave one open? And right away he goes, your comfort comes second to other things. Right away. So that's another message, right? So within the first few seconds of that encounter, already there are messages being sent, right? So
hold on that. So if you were a student in his class and he walked in with, not only, to your point, not only what he said, but kind of how he said it, what are you thinking and feeling as one of his students?
So already I am feeling intimidated, and I'm feeling, oh my God, this is already, I feel uncomfortable, because the messages that are being sent is that and then he confirms that, right? So he says, personally, I think this class will be a waste of your time. And then he says, and what's infinitely worse, my time. So basically right away in that little thing, he puts the hierarchy of saying, you're not important. I'm here because I have to be here. And since we're here, you may do the assignments. You may attend if you want to. If you don't, that's perfectly fine with me. So right away, so many messages. So as a student there, I'm saying, oh my God, when can I withdraw from this?
Right.
When is the deadline to withdraw? I don't want to be here, because right away I feel so demotivated. And probably the first challenge I face, I'm going to feel, okay, I'm not smart and this is going to be difficult. And I'm not, and I will not even be thinking about going for support.
It's interesting. It's interesting. If you listen to our first podcast, the elongated podcast, we talked about one of the major things that a leader needs to have, and you said this, is that a leader needs to genuinely care about their people.
Oh my God! Yes.
Right? You said it was a secret to their success. So if you're a student in that environment walking in, do you think he cares about you?
Absolutely not. And he right away, he says it first subtly with, his actions and the sarcasm, and then he openly says it. It's infinitely worse that it's a waste of my time being here. Right away. So thinking about this in the work environment, right? If somebody sends messages like this, now imagine, we all struggle. If we want to innovate, if we want to grow, the failure is inevitable. We have to fail. We have to develop this expectation almost of, yes, I'm going to fail at some point. But in order to grow, I need to be supported and learn from my failures and be able to talk about them. But with a leader like that, first of all, I am terrified of failing because he's gonna probably his reaction. I'm terrified of his reaction. I will try as much as possible to hide the fact that it's my mistake. That's where we try to point fingers at other people because we don't want to admit that, because again, it's that expectation of course you failed.
And you and I, you and I could have this probably a 3-hour discussion on why people are like that, right? Like, why are leaders like? Why do some leaders, like in his case, walk in beating his chest, saying, I'm this and you're that. Yeah, right.
And this is interesting. This is very interesting. I think you mentioned it also during our podcast. Is that we learn from other people, and leadership is also very often is learned from other people. And so when somebody has a leader like that themselves, right? So when somebody says, your comfort is not my concern, your motivation is not my job. And I think you mentioned that last time, right? So your motivation as an employee, when a leader said that your motivation as an employee is not my job,
right
away. So then when you become a leader, you're more likely to take that style of leadership yourself.
It's almost like a discussion you could have with Russell Crowe saying, well, what happened to you when you were 4 years old? Or was it a parent? Was it a teacher? Was it a professor? Was it a soccer coach? Who taught you to be like that? Whole other discussion. But absolutely. So what else did you pick up?
So Jennifer, the way she did, so first of all, my God, that was very brave move for her to just stand up and walk to the window and just do her thing and then talk to people. What I really enjoyed about the way she approached that is the way she was talking to the workers. She basically provided the context, right? So it's very hot here and it's very noisy with the windows open. So she basically provided context. She said she gave them a very specific request. Can you work somewhere else for 45 minutes? So if she could just say, if she would have said, just move away, can you just work somewhere else without any reason, there would be less likely to say yes to that. But she said why it was important, for how long, and then she was genuinely nice and friendly to them. So
right.
It's very easy to say no to her.
So that's very true. I mean, she was great in that scene, by the way. And to your point is, so first of all, you said she was nice. She was pleasant, right? Versus she could have been a jerk. Yo, what's going on out there? Right. But she was very, very nice. Number two, as you said, she gave the context as to the why. Why am I going to ask you to do something? And then there was a time bound part of it as well, to your point. In 40, can you come back in 45 minutes? Right. Because so we can finish up what we're doing here. Talk to me about the risk she took though, in doing that, especially the timing after he just finished saying what he said.
Exactly. No, it was a huge risk, but at the same time, we talked about leading by example, right? So now she started something completely different. She showed everybody that there is another way to handle this situation. So again, she could have started a discussion with the teacher, arguments. She actually did it. How much more powerful it is when everybody just sits down, watches her just get up, walk, demonstrate it, see the result, and everybody said, oh my God.
Right.
There's another way to handle this. Yes. So it is much more powerful when we lead by example.
And what do they say? It's better to ask for forgiveness and permission. Right. She just did, right? She just got up and walked. And what was his reaction to her doing that?
Oh, that was beautiful, right? So at that moment, he had a choice. And he could have gone in different directions. He could have completely ignored her and move on with the class, like as if that never happened. He could have gotten angry and said, well, you dissipate, get out of my class. He could have done that too, right? Technically. But what he chose, and I think that was a pivotal moment, and the change in the direction of the whole class and their relationship as well, is in this moment, he stopped. And now we see a humorous side of him, right? And he's basically embraced this, admitting his inability to handle it the most effective way. And he smiled and he said, well, as you just saw, there's more than one solution to any given problem.
Exactly.
It's like a door that opened, and now we see, he's not lost completely. there is something we want to know what happens.
Absolutely. And again, I just think about the other students. So the other students are to your point earlier, are a little intimidated by Russell Crowe. But now after this event, what do you think they're thinking and feeling?
So now is that if I would be a student, I'm thinking, okay, maybe I wouldn't withdraw from this class.
Right?
Maybe that first impression is not completely true. So maybe, that humor, that ability to learn from your mistakes. So right away he showed, okay, I failed, so I learned something from this. And he was able to have fun, to laugh at himself. And I think, even, if we take a look at the work environment, how important it is to be able to laugh at ourselves, especially when there is a failure, and have fun together as a team.
Exactly. Yeah. The other thing that popped up to me was I think if I'm a student there, I'm thinking to myself, maybe it's okay if I can take some risks now. Like Jennifer Connelly did, right? She took a big risk and she saw the reaction. So maybe that sets the tone for the rest of the semester. Right? How do you think and by the way, was there anything else that jumped out at you from the scene itself?
Well, actually, something you just mentioned, I think, just triggered some of my other thoughts. It's also seeing Jennifer do this and have a really positive reaction and result. It showed everybody else that we are in control, because in the beginning, it was very, very much students were passive, and he's kind of coming in, okay, we found ourselves in this situation. I don't want to be here. Do the work, don't do the work. I don't care. So everybody's kind of just sitting there being passive, because he closes the window. He doesn't let any other options, be available for them. But with her demonstrating that, I think she gave the control back to the students. Now they realize, oh, wait,
right.
When we do something differently, we are in control.
That's brilliant. That is a brilliant. It's funny. We used to say, you don't have to be a leader to be a leader, right?
Oh my God, yes.
And so in her case, she wasn't necessarily the quote unquote professor, but she stood up and she took a risk, and she basically showed everybody else what can be done, what the reaction would be. And essentially, like I said, set the tone for the rest of the semester.
Absolutely.
And his reaction, to your point, basically gave everybody permission in a way to take those types of risks, to push back a little bit, to be a leader, even though if you don't even have the title, right?
This is such a good point, that you don't have to have a specific title to be a leader. You lead every day through the example of what you do, because it is much more powerful to show to somebody, if you do this, this would happen. And that is why I think we talked about it last time, is movies are such a powerful way to learn about leadership, is because we observe a situation that it unfolds with specific behaviors. So we can relate to that. We can imagine ourselves being in that situation. And now, faced with the situation, you and I, somebody else sitting in that room, observing something like that, we're more likely to get up and do something, or to say something, because we saw it, and we saw that there is a positive reaction that's possible at the end of it.
Because everything someone does, a leader does, is observable, right?
Yeah.
How they dress, how they walk, how they talk, how they, how they interact with people. You mentioned earlier their facial expressions. Mm-hmm. So you've been in the leadership world for your entire life, right?
Not in the entire life, but definitely for some time, yes.
So so in a corporate perspective, besides an educational perspective, I mean, have you seen things like this before? Have you had professors coming in beating their chests, or leaders coming in beating their chests a little bit?
Of course, and I think before you said, it's very interesting to know where this is coming from and why people do that. But I think also, partially it's because we have some notions about what leaders are supposed to behave like, what they're supposed to be like, and that confidence, and that maybe superiority, hierarchy. Maybe this is also part of the stereotype that leaders, especially new leaders, are coming in and thinking, I'm supposed to behave like that. I'm supposed to be a little bit above. I'm supposed to have that level of authority and confidence, and to be considered a good leader. Right. So that's also part of this. Of course, I see this, and sometimes it's even forced a little bit, right? I'm supposed to be maybe a little bit of fear, maybe a little bit of this. So I definitely see this all the time.
They probably watch too many movies, right?
See that too, because again, like we see certain stereotypes come from movies too, right? We saw something that's somebody highly regarded, somebody who is very, larger than life, extroverted, very energized, very enthusiastic. So it creates this stereotype of what we're supposed to behave like as leaders.
So if you just out of curiosity, if you were coaching a leader like that, right? And you were in the back of the room just giving feedback and things like that, what would you do?
Now since we met and since we had conversations, I actually think showing a video clip like this and discussing this would be really, really impactful. Is to say, hey, what do you observe? Is because it actually shows something in a non-threatening way. Because when we start conversations saying, hey, if you behave like this, what happens? People tend to get defensive. It's our natural reaction. But when we take a story, take a case study, take a movie clip like this, and we talk about this, it creates a conversation around somebody else. And then eventually it creates the self-awareness and saying, oh, wait.
Right.
There are certain situations where I behave like this. When I come in close-minded and maybe, speak over people and not, not allowing for a second opinion or other ways to do things.
Oh my God, that's great. It's funny. It's almost like you want to show them the clip, and then you want to say, get permission to videotape them so you can compare and contrast when it's all said and done, right?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be very, really effective, I'm sure. Oh my God. So Alena, you've been great. How does people get in touch with you?
So the best way to get in touch with me is through LinkedIn. This is my digital home. This is where I spend most of my time. So Alena Sviderskaia, and I don't know, you probably can include the link to my LinkedIn below your podcast.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, and I'm posting a lot of leadership content, and I'm excited to meet anyone who wants to learn more about leadership.
Oh my God. The best of the best from Canada. Alena, thank you so much for your time. And Russell Crowe and Jennifer Connelly, thank you from the bottom of the heart for noticing everything. You were great. I appreciate it. Guys, listen, again, Scott DiGiamarino for the Inspirational Motivational Leadership Podcast. Thank you so much for being here today. Listen to Alena's full broadcast on all the different platforms that we actually have our podcast, including iTunes. Alena, thanks so much and enjoy.
Thank you so much for having me.